Alrighty, welcome to Module 3, where this week we're going to talk about scheduling out some key functions, and it's not the most appropriate title, scheduling, but also a little bit planning out some of your key functions that's going to take place at the conference. I would consider this kind of part 2 of the pre-planning phase, but a little bit more nuanced. So what are we going to cover in this week? We're going to talk about an RFP, your hotel booking, continuing education, pre-conference, your registration site, and then later in the week, I'm going to introduce the first group assignment. I'm still contemplating how I want to do that. I have it almost drawn out, so I just want to finalize some things. So what is an RFP? It stands for Request for Proposals. And you'll see a lengthy example in your textbook on pages 327 to 337. In short, it's a document that stipulates what services the organization wants from an outside contractor and requests a bid to perform certain services. An RFP can be very robust, meaning lengthy, as you see kind of outlined in the book. It could also be short of just saying, can you please provide to me some information about your hotel, or can you please provide a proposal for a service? So you commonly see this in a hotel, which is what we're primarily going to focus on today, of requesting a space from a hotel to accommodate the needs for your respective conference. You will also see it of travel agencies when people are requesting support from another organization for international or domestic travel. So for example, let's say you are a corporation that is sending, 100 of your folks to San Diego for a meeting, and you may not want them to book that all themselves. You want to book the most efficient, so you may issue an RFP to a travel agency to coordinate those logistics for you. You'll also see it for the purchasing or the use of a registration system. Some companies or associations or meeting planners have one that they already use in-house, or sometimes you may want to put one together for each conference. So you'll say, here are the needs, and then they'll respond. Same thing for ground transportation, depending on the needs of your conference or meeting. You may need ground transportation. That may be a chartered bus or sprinter, or it may be you're bringing in a lot of executives and you need black car service. So for example, a few years ago, I hosted a retreat or a summit where we brought in approximately 50 CEOs, presidents, and other high-level leaders of healthcare organizations from around the United States. And even though I didn't think, I thought they were fine to take a Lyft or Uber at that time. I understand not a taxi, but I thought we could have given them credit to use a Black or Lyft, or just some of them could just take a Lyft. But my respective lead did not think the same, so I paid to shuttle them from the airport in a black car service to the airport and back. So that was actually, when you're doing that's actually very costly. It was about $60 per person per trip. Luckily on the way back, some of them decided like, oh, hey, let's ride together. And so it saved a little bit of money. You also see requests for proposals when it comes to catering. So you're going to say, here are the meals that I need. Here's the budget that I would like to stay within. Here's what I want. And then caterers normally respond to you with their respective menus. Always audiovisual for depending on what you're doing. And then as well as if you're doing an exhibit hall, someone who's going to build your exhibit hall or provide the services, tents, chairs, tables, pipe and drape, any other decoration, putting up all the respective signage. You can pretty much do an RFP for anything. Now, one caveat to that is sometimes when you're in certain hotels, you may have to use their in-house provided service, their in-house service provider. So you may need to use whoever their caterer is, or their audiovisual company, or whoever their contracted labor team is for the exhibit hall. Some places may allow you to bring in somebody else for a fee, but most of the time, depending where you're doing, you may have to use somebody in-house. And the reason people do that is because these people know their building and how it's set up. They have their appropriate certificate of assurance. They've worked with the people in the house. So generally, it's a little bit more, it's a little bit more safe to use somebody who's in-house. So here's an example of one that we use at ASU. So we have a long-term contract with Anthony Travel, which is a travel agency. They've actually changed names to something that starts with on, but I don't remember, but I still call them Anthony Travel because I've been here forever. Change is hard sometimes. And so I can email our rep directly and with this information, or I can fill out this form. So what they're looking for is who's going to be the responsible party. Who are you? How do I get in contact with you? What is the date of the event? When does it end? What is the name of the event or the conference so that they know what to send to the hotels? And then as you can see, what's highlighted here, it says, well, I will be needing assistance with a hotel room and conference space. Then on the next screen, it's going to tell me the check-in dates and check-out dates for the hotel rooms, how many types of beds you need. Yes, you can specify that. Do you want a certain number of kings? Do you want a certain number of double or queens, depending on the hotel, or others such as suites. If you're bringing in keynote, sometimes you may want to put that keynote in a suite. And then any other thing that you're looking for. As you can see here, it talks about the ideal guest room rate. So what is the amount of money you want to spend per night? And there's always want to make sure that you account for hotel fees and taxes when you're doing that. So for example, let's say your hotel room night is $150 per night. And then you add on another $25 per night for resort fee, another 10% for hotel tax, another 1.3% for the hotel state bed tax. So you always want to make sure you account for that when you're setting up your room rates. Then most importantly, it asks you here, how will your payment be handled? And your payment can be handled generally in one of two ways. One is the attendee, and most commonly, the attendee is paying for their room, meaning that I am booking a room block, which we'll talk about shortly, and they're going to pay for their room. The other is I am paying for everyone, and I'm going to put the master bill, put everyone on my master bill. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pause this to stop my dog to see what she's doing. Okay, sorry about that. So the most common being the room is the attendee is going to pay for their own hotel room, and you're generally covering the cost of the meeting space. The other is what's called a master bill, where you are paying for everyone. Then that's normally seen for a corporation that they're bringing somebody to a site and they're going to pay for everything. So everything will be covered normally with the exception of incidentals, meaning like an upcharge for pay-per-view movies, room service, expanded internet, or anything else that may be an additional charge. Those are normally called, that's what's an incidental, and then normally everything else is either paid by the master portfolio, or like I said, in most conferences, room, food and beverage, meeting space, food and beverage is covered by the meeting sponsor. The actual hotel room is paid for by the attendee. Then next, you see the start and end date for the conference space, meaning the actual meeting rooms that you need. And then it will also talk about the size of space required. And generally for this is something you'll have to talk back and forth. So you don't, when you put this in, it doesn't have to be an end all be all, but this is generally very important if you are going to have an exhibition space, meaning that you're going to have exhibitor booths and you need to know how many square feet you need, or how many booths you plan to have in the work with you. You can also outline your audiovisual needs and your food and beverage needs here. And as I mentioned, this is not something that's an end all be all. It's just kind of giving that filler out. Then you can also get to talk about what are other needs that you have, such as ancillary space, what is your overall budget, and then as well as what are the types of setups that you're needing. You can have other preferences that you want to put in there. Is it a one-time conference, annual, takes place multiple times? Because this allows you to decide when you're working with another hotel is how often can they expect to have your business, and they may be willing to give you better rates. You could talk to what's most important to you in the hotel. So for me, I like views, lots of windows. I want it to be close to things, so that way specifically Anthony Travel, they know what to look for. If you have a hotel in mind, you can tell them this. If you plan the event in the past, you can look at where have you contracted. That way they know what to look for. And most importantly, you can tell them why you selected the property. And this is just, once again, to give you and the hotel provider, and in this case, the booking agent, the ability to have conversations back and forth about what you need and to ultimately help you pick the best hotel. So this is an example of the JW Marriott in Chicago, very similar form that you can also put in just as a general person, or if you say you're booking a wedding or a dinner or whatnot, you can put this in. And one caveat to this is, although you may have submitted it to this respective hotel, they more likely than not will send it to all of their partners in the area who may have similar properties that may meet your needs. Because one hotel may be booked, but one that's close by, that they are a partner organization, they may have some space, so they will help you out. So same thing, how many beds, what do you need, what type of conference space are you looking for, what are the dates, what are the times, all the same things you'll put in there. Then from there, you're going to get back a response of lots of proposals. And from there, you can evaluate it and decide who you want to go with. Some tips and tricks on working with an RFP: be very specific about what you want. If you know there's something that is a non-negotiable, put that in there. If you can, outline your budget and your ideal room rate for food and beverage, audio, everything. The more you can give the people, the better response you'll get. So that way you don't get a response. Let's say your budget is $25,000 for food and beverage, but somebody's food and beverage, they're going to bring you in at $50,000. Let's not waste your time. Let's not waste their time. For some things, you can outline the goal of what you are trying to achieve. So that way it allows them to prepare a more tailored response to you that may include things you did not think about. So let's say you are looking for a black car service and you say, I need 50 round trip pickups from the airport to the respective hotel, but you may also need them to go to a dinner, or there are other things you may need. If you put that all in there or tell them what you're ultimately trying to achieve, they may give you a better rate than saying, hey, if you do this, we'll give you this. Give them a deadline of when to respond and estimate the time you'll need before you respond. And please make sure you do respond to them, even if they are not the successful bidder. But you want to make sure you give them a deadline so that you have time, so that you know when to expect it, and ultimately that it's fair. So if everyone gets in before their respective deadline, you can review it. And then if someone comes in after the deadline, you don't have to review them. Read each of them multiple times. And if you have someone who is neutral and is knowledgeable of booking an RFP, have them read it as well. Maybe they'll catch something you didn't catch. Most importantly, negotiate. Ask for things that are important to you. Maybe you can negotiate a number down or some more concessions, which we'll talk about shortly. But this is the time to negotiate before you sign a contract. They always have a little bit of wiggle room. They obviously want to make the most money out of you, but more importantly, they want to make sure they get your business. So they're generally willing to give a little bit more to get your business. And as a reminder, please do respond. If you don't respond to somebody's RFP, eventually you'll get that reputation of, oh, you put an RFP out there, but you never respond. And then people will actually stop responding to your RFPs. And that's not a reputation that you want. And they may ask, why did you not pick? That's for you to decide. You don't necessarily have to tell them who the successful bidder was. They'll generally find out more likely than not, especially if it's a hotel, they'll see where you end up booking it. But also you can provide them feedback on why you chose somebody versus another. It may be price, it may be previous experiences, what's the overall package, because then once again, that allows them to build a better package for you next year. So let's talk about room blocks. So when you get your hotel, people need a place to stay. And they need a place to stay because they are not from there. So what is a room block? Ultimately, it's the number of rooms, specifically sleeping rooms where people sleep, plus the cost of your food and beverage equals free meeting space. So most hotels don't make their money off of the rental of a ballroom or a meeting room. They make their money from everything else associated with that: food and beverage, audio visual, and also your sleeping rooms. So for example, if you try to book a meeting space at a hotel room with no sleeping rooms, they may actually deny you if there's something else that has a higher demand that's going to get them more money. Now, if it's in the off-peak season, yes, they may charge you the $1,500 to $3,000 for the small meeting room, but more likely than not, they will probably deny you. And there are a lot of other places where you can go that have meeting spaces, generally smaller hotels, but if it's a convention type place with ballrooms, they probably don't necessarily want you there if you're not getting sleeping rooms, because the sleeping rooms is where they get money, as well as the food and beverage and the audio. So when you get an RFP back, this is generally what it's going to look like on the top of the page. The date, so night number 1, 2, and 3 are the dates that you have booked. The next thing is going to be what is the room rate that they are offering you, and then the number of rooms allotted to you based on what you told them. So for an example, and I don't have the exact numbers for upcoming hotel block, but here's an example for my NACO conference that's next year. So our dates are February 4th, 23 through February 8th, 23. They are offering us a room rate of approximately $160 Canadian. I think when I last looked, it was 130 US, or I could be off with the exact numbers. Maybe it may actually be 160 US and then the higher Canadian. And then that next number is how many rooms that we are agreeing to. So on that first Saturday, you see that there are 100 rooms. Then Sunday, there's 200. Monday, 200. Tuesday, 200. And then on Wednesday night, we're dropping it to 150. So important on their gold is when the conference officially is the gold is the night before the conference begins. And then maroon is the last day of the conference. So like I said, I don't know the exact numbers that we booked, but this, I imagine how they probably did it based on our number of attendees. So we're assuming about 100 people may come on Saturday. We have about 300 people that come to this conference, so maybe a third are probably going to arrive on the Saturday before, because long travel, it takes a decent amount of time to get to Canada from the East Coast, depending where you're flying from. So they want a day, and then Sunday night, and then they want Sunday to be able to explore Vancouver. The majority of people may come in on Sunday because the conference does not begin till Monday morning. So we can expect the majority of them to come on Sunday, and not everyone will come and stay at the hotel because they may live local to the area, or they may choose to find another hotel that may be cheaper. So we have the same for the first 3 nights of the conference, the preceding night, 2 nights of the full conference. And then on Wednesday, I'm putting about 150, which is about half the conference. And that's because some people are probably going to check out that day. But since the conference ends at about, I want to say 3 p.m. on Wednesday, some people still may stay one more night, because it may not be convenient for those folks to go back to the East Coast, because they would then land in the middle of the night. So they're probably staying one more night. So some other tips and tricks when you're reviewing your room block is review the data of previous years. for your hotel. So even if you're new in the position, you can look, you should have what's called a pickup list, and you can see how many people are actually staying at the hotel compared to your number of attendees. That allows you to make an educated guess to either increase the numbers or lower the numbers. You can negotiate your attrition, so meaning how many of the rooms have to be booked before you have to pay a fee. So that is one big thing that takes place with a room block. If you agree to do 100 rooms at 100 rooms at $100, basically you are guaranteeing them $10,000 worth of revenue. And let's say you only get 80% of that full, that means they only make $8,000. So you may be responsible for paying that $2,000 difference. So that's why you want to negotiate what is the attrition. If I meet 80 to 85% of the room block, then you're generally fine. Anything below that, then you have to pay the difference. And that is their right, because they are offering you a certain amount of room nights at a discounted rate than what's on the public market. So they want to make sure they're making their money. And if they don't, they can charge you. You should ask for what's called a pickup list. That means who has registered or not registered, who has booked their hotel room. And you should ask for that a weekly update, monthly, depending on how close you are to the conference. What that allows you to do is reach out to those who have not booked a room and say, hey, just a reminder, book your room. And if they don't, you can, if they don't, you know to continue bugging them. Or if they say, I'm not going to stay there, you can take them off the list. And depending how far out you are from the conference, the hotel may allow you to actually lower your room block, and then they can open that up to other people who may need that hotel room. Another thing we also do, and they don't advertise it, but you can always ask for 2 days before and 2 days after of that same negotiated rate, depending on what's taking place in the hotel. And what that allows you to do is, let's say somebody wants to stay in the hotel arrive to the hotel 2 days early or stay 2 days after because they just want to enjoy the location, and they get that hotel rate. It's a nice little thing, generally extra revenue for the hotel, and it's a nice thing for your guests. Now, they may not always honor this. If, let's say, our conference ends on Wednesday and then another conference starts immediately on Thursday, they may not offer that, but it's always something you can ask for. Always negotiate some concessions from the hotel. I would say a standard is your Wi-Fi should be free in all hotel rooms, not the meeting space. They generally will never do that, but in the hotel rooms, your Wi-Fi should be free. Some things you're also seeing now is a comp resort fee, the nightly fee. So depending where you're staying, if it has a spa, gym, or something like that, they normally charge an extra 30 to 40 bucks a night, depending on the type of hotel. They may comp that fee for you. If it is in close to a airport, they may have a shuttle that goes back and forth, and they may tack that on as a charge, or they may say, hey, we'll give you this free shuttle to pick up your guests if you provide us all their flight information. Another one is one free room for every certain amount of rooms. So let's say there are 50 room nights booked, maybe you get one free room. They'll negotiate that with you. And those can be used for speakers that you're bringing in, guests that you want to take care of, possibly your board members. It just depends on what works or what you need. But you can always ask for a certain amount of room nights for free. In my opinion, at minimum, you as the planner, your room should be free from the hotel. If you're bringing a certain amount of business, they should comp your room, or at the minimum give you an upgrade. So for me, I generally don't mind if they give me an upgraded room that has a nicer view or a little bit bigger room. I am a person that still loves to take a bath, especially after a long day. So I will always try to make sure I get a room with a bathtub or at least a nice view. So that's me. Or like I said, you may just want the room for free to save your organization a little bit of money. So here's a great little place to take a pause, and then you can come back if you want to. But now we're going to peek into a little bit of the speaker selection that's going to come up next week. But once again, we're talking about the planning of it. So a core component of some meetings is what's called continuing education. And the reason you want to plan this because it takes time and helps you design your overall conference schedule. So Depending on what type of continuing education you're offering, you're going to want to investigate the granting organization's timeline. Depending on how they're set up, they generally need everything 3 to 5 months before the conference, depending on the size and what type of continuing education units you are offering. Some questions that you want to ask and answer yourself is, how many CEUs do you want to offer at your conference? By also looking at the organization, what counts as a CEU activity? So for example, time walking in between between meeting rooms generally don't count. Normally, food and beverage function does not count unless there is an activity associated with it. Same thing with exhibitor halls, that normally does not count. So you want to make sure you're taking care of how many CEUs do you want to offer and what counts as that. You want to think is what is needed to track a CEU. So some places may need an exact of sign in, sign out. Some may need just a, hey, did you show up the day of? And then you have all the CEUs. This is very important because depending on what's needed for each CEU of tracking can definitely change how many staff you need and what type of technology you need in the room. You also need to think about what exhibitors can be present at your conference. So if there's somebody that is selling something that may be controversial or could sway something, you may not be able to have them be at your conference. Same thing, certain people may not be able to sponsor your conference depending on what types of CEUs you're providing. Now, once again, if CEUs granting them is a goal for your conference, build your schedule around maximizing those offerings. This is a great way to bring in additional revenue for your conference and bring in a lot more people if you're offering CEUs. You generally see this a lot in the medical community or people who provide some type of health practice. So think psychologists, social worker, behavioral health, obviously doctors, dentists. Also, you see it with lawyers, teachers, anybody that requires some type of continuing education. This is a great way to bring in people because it's normally one place you can get a lot for the best bang for your buck. So once you have that, you can then begin thinking about pre-conference activities. So that may be a board meeting, more continuing education, excursion tours, all things available to bring in additional revenue. So for the board meeting, if you're an association, this is where a lot of governance is taking place. Voting of important items, transitioning the board, cultivating new members, cultivating of sponsors, lots of planning. It generally takes place over 1 to 2 days prior to the conference. And a great place to learn more about board meetings and governance of associations is what is called the ASAE. And this is the Association Society for Association Executives. So this is an association for people who run associations, which is very funny within itself, but they do have a lot of things. So if you're interested in working for more associations, this is a great organization to be a part of. So if you're thinking about more continuing education, this could be a day where you're having some more day-long type continuing educations. So is this an example of NASPA, a place I used to go to? And so they had multiple pre-conferences to extend the conference to mostly get the most bang for the buck. They did charge fees for this, so it brought additional revenue. So here you can see that they have a 1-day workshop about higher education case law. One thing was a 2-day workshop for an international symposium, and as well as an undergraduate student conference. What's not shown on the screen are different registration rates and how much more money this cost in addition to the conference. So for example, the international symposium, I want to say cost an extra $500 in addition to the $1,000 they are paying. Great additional revenue, because you're also normally paying somebody to facilitate these, so you want to bring in more revenue. Pre-conference activities, other great things to always do are excursions or tours. So like, for example, here in Arizona, a great pre-conference activity is always a visit to the Grand Canyon. Some people also do the zoo, botanical gardens, or other things that are in Arizona. So lots of different local attractions. If you're something that is more trade oriented, you may take a tour of a local factory, or like for my association, NACO, we generally always go visit the university that is hosting us or a university close to us to see their facilities and see where they put their commencement on. This gives a great way to provide lots of networking activities for your guests to meet other people and see a lot of great things, bringing a little bit added value. These are things that do cost money. You generally charge at cost or making sure that maybe a little bit more depending on. Once again, you can negotiate the rates for these. You can say, hey, I'm going to bring 100 people to your South Rim tour. Can you give me a little bit of a discount? And most places will work with you on that. So once you have all that, you can begin planning your registration site and your registration process. So your registration serves as a place to collect data on each of your attendees. This is important because you want to know who's attending your conference. Your sponsors and exhibitors want to know, and depending on how it's set up, you generally have an obligation to share limited information with them. But this will help you inform how to plan future conferences. So I divided this into 2 columns. The left side being what I consider are mandatory things to collect. First off, I would say the legal first and last name, and then as well as their preferred pronouns, so that we are making sure that we are creating an inclusive environment for everyone, and their preferred name. And a lot of times people ask, why do I collect the preferred name if I have their first and last name? Because the reason is, let's say it's a legal first name versus preferred name. So if you're granting continuing education, they need their legal first name on that certificate, but they probably don't want to be called by that in the conference. So for example, my boss's name is Cynthia Leeds. So for her to keep her social work license, we need to issue everything as Cynthia Leeds. But if you know her, she goes by Cindy. So her name back, she probably wants to be called Cindy Leeds, not Cynthia. But for the purposes of her CEUs, she needs Cynthia on that certificate because those places are generally very, very strict about that. You normally want their title so that we know who is attending, not the person, but what types of attendees, VPs versus individual contributors versus project managers. This will help in future planning conferences and when you're creating your sponsors prospectus. You can say, here's the data on the attendees that I have, who's attending, and you get more folks. What organization are they coming from? What is their address? This is generally for if you want to mail them anything, or if somebody doesn't pay, calls damage, you have a way to contact them. Email address is very important because that's how you're going to communicate to them over and over. And then I always put a question that says dietary restrictions, and I generally make that required so that they can say, I have none, or they can outline what are their dietary restrictions that are needed, whether that be vegan, vegetarian, a religious exemption, they have an allergy, whatever it may be. Because in theory, since they are paying for this, they have a right to get this restriction accommodated. Now, I'm not going to say if somebody has a preference. This is more of a restriction, something that may cause harm to them or violate their religion. You have to accommodate that. And there are lots of other trainings that you can take about that. And then as well as moving on, accessibility needs. What do they need to be successful and have a safe and welcoming environment? Is it that they need a ramp? Do they need a raised table? Do they need interpreters? Do they need closed captioning? What do they need? This is so you can make the experience better for them. Then on the right-hand side, this is where you can get a little bit more extra information. So you can collect their biography, a photo of them to help populate the app. What are they interested in as it relates to your respective conference? Sometimes people like to collect what sessions do they want to go to in their agenda, because this will allow you to place certain topics in certain rooms if you know there's going to be a high, if you know that you need a space for 400 versus 200 in one room. You don't have to do this in the registration. You can do it closer when you're activating your app, but if it's easy to do, you can go ahead. If your organization is based on regions, you can collect what region they're at, so you have that data. and ultimately you can collect whatever you want. Now, the one caveat is you don't want to place too much in the registration system because the longer it is, the less likely someone is to do it, or they may complain. People just want to pay and move on. So when setting your registration rates, you're looking at what is your cost per attendee based on your budget, and then how much profit do you want to make. You can choose to make a lot of profit. You can choose to make a little. It depends on your organization. And I would say what are comparable organizations. So for example, if you're using someone that primarily is in the educational aspect, you don't want to make a huge amount of profit, but you do want to make sure your conference stays afloat. But if you're in the private sector and these people have a lot of money to go ahead, toss that extra profit on there, make $1,000 per attendee. It's up to you. Other things you can do is have what's called an early bird registration, meaning that if you register by a certain date early as soon as it opens, you get lower profit, but it generally does drive attendance, and that's more for the budget conscious folks who just probably want to save that extra $100, $200 because that's one night of a hotel. Then you have those who are late registrants. Normally those are like the people in the last month or 3 weeks, depending on your respective organization. You can mark it up $100. You're registering late, charge them a little bit extra. If you are an association, you can have a member versus non-member rate. So normally non-members pay more than what a member would pay. But the big thing is the rate difference cannot be the same as what a member would, what you would charge in membership. So for example, if the cost for a member is $500 and the cost for a non-member is $1,000, that membership rate can't be $500 to join the organization and you get that discount, because then you get to potentially violating antitrust laws. Normally you just want to charge them a little bit more that will say, okay, maybe I should join the organization. You can also use this to sell optional activities, such as those excursions or tours, items that you want to sell that may be branded. Another common thing to do, a dinner reception ticket for guests. So let's say you're hosting a night out with your organization. You guys are going to go to a big reception, but some people may bring their partner or a friend to the conference with them, and they want to be able to attend the reception with them. So you can normally sell a ticket just for the cost of that reception so they can bring their guests, and you can account for them for food and beverages. Then when it comes to payment terms, in my opinion, credit card is ideal, but you do have the budget for fees and all the things that are going to be taken away when you're using a credit card processing. Generally, it is a charge per transaction plus 3 to 4% of the actual fee. So let's say the fee is $100. You're going to probably pay 25 cents every time that transaction happens. That's just one fee plus 3 to 4%. So that would be $3 to $4 per transaction. So you just have to make sure you plan for those. You can offer group discounts if you have the capacity to manage it. In my opinion, you should avoid checks when possible. When you're dealing with international stuff, sometimes you may need to do a check, or organizations such as higher education institutions or governments may need to cut a check. But if you can, avoid it when possible, because it can get messy and somebody has to track it while you're also doing a lot of other things. Have a written and publicized cancellation policy, especially now with COVID and other things. I mean, while people cancel for all kinds of reasons, with COVID, people want to cancel because they have COVID. And now most organizations are just treating it as you're sick. So no, we can't give you your money back. Sometimes it is time-based. So let's say within 6 months of the conference, you'll get 75% of your registration back, and then so on to 50, 25 to 0. I would say you always should still charge a fee if somebody cancels, even if they do cancel on early, to just cover the time you've put into them, to cover those credit card processing fees, the cost to redo the refund. So, charge them a fee. It doesn't have to be significant, but you should. Then once you do that, you can begin building your registration website. So here's an example of our NACO one. All these links are there, but it is kind of still a little bit rough when I looked at it. But you'll see at the bottom, you have the registration portion. They can look at their hotel and travel, high-level overview of the schedule. Eventually, I'll become a detailed schedule as we publish more things, and then as well as how to become a sponsor or an exhibitor and who's also attending. You always want to make sure your registration has the same look and feel of what is going to take place at the conference. So this is a beautiful, picturesque Vancouver, and this is what's going to be on the program and what our signage will look like, the colors that we're going to represent, that we're going to show. Everything should look the same. Here's an example of PCMA for their upcoming 2023 conference. You can see the dates, what it's going to look like. They have a little chat box there to help folks. And as always, the big thing you see is register now. That's what we want people to do. This is taking place in Columbus. So you can see they have a little bit more about Columbus in that upper right-hand corner. So there are lots of registration systems. Here are 5 ones you'll probably use a lot. I am not endorsing any of these, but these are ones that you're typically run into. So Cvent is probably the leading one. That is your leading registration system. If this is something that you want to go into running events and running meeting planning, I would highly recommend you get familiar with Cvent. They have classes that you can take on these, because if you can demonstrate expertise in this, you are getting that kind of leg up over somebody else. Aventry, they just changed names to, I believe, Stova. They were just bought out by Stova. Another one that is slowly on the rise up. We use it here at ASU. Eventbrite is another one. Very out of the box, just kind of put something in there and you just collect the fee, or it could be free. MemberClicks is one that's used by associations a lot because it's connected to the database. Whova is another neat app that can take your registration as well as control your conference. Each of these has pros and cons to them, different pricing structures, all for you to explore in your own time. So that ends this. Your group assignment will be posted on Wednesday as I continue working through that. I didn't talk about exhibitors in this one. I thought I was going to. I didn't like the way it fitted in, so I decided to skip it. So your group assignment will be posted on Wednesday. And then next week, we're going to talk about speaker selection and management. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you later.